Welcome to the Belize Caribbean Pulse. Recently, we had a rare opportunity to speak to a prominent African American, Jim Brown. Jim Brown was a superstar of the American Football League. He's presently one of the most popular African American actors. Today, Jim Brown works with the gangs in Los Angeles, the Crips and the Bloods. He have turned his private home into a center which promotes and teaches life-affirming skills to these young men and women. Many of the social issues that we discussed in this interview are applicable to the social problems that affects the Caribbean region, particularly in Belize. Today, we will discuss some of those issues that are pertinent to our circumstances in the entire region. Brother Jim Brown, we appreciate you being on our show today, the Belize Caribbean Pulse. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's very nice to have you all in my home.
You have achieved glory. You have reached the heights of sports glory, and you have achieved prominence in the film industry. Reflecting on those things now, how do you see them?
Well, actually, at this particular time, I have no interest at all in those accomplishments, talking about them, dealing with them. Time moves on. I'm in something very important now. As I was when I was even doing that, I'm a person that's about change. Movies are controlled by other people. Sports are controlled by other people, basically Western Europeans. So, you know, I did that. It's gone. It was cool. But I'm about change.
We have the Magic Johnson, the many famous names that we can mention who have reached heights of stardom, but they don't control their destinies. They don't control the industries. What are some of your views and comments on that?
This country is a great country, but for the black male, African American, it's a very confusing, contradictory country. So I felt that I had a choice of being a man first and a product second, you know, so I chose to be a man first. It's all around us. You know, in slavery we had the field slave and the house slave. The house slave, of course, enjoyed better food, better clothing, better treatment, but was totally controlled. The field slave, of course, didn't enjoy any kind of treatment other than hardships, but in some sense remained a free man, even though he was totally abused. Today we have the same set of circumstances. You have those in the house that feel that to be a great movie star, to be a great football player, basketball player, is some kind of achievement, yet every last one of them are under the control of a white man. And we don't even control anything in our neighborhoods. So it is my ambition to try to bring some kind of attention to that and to implement certain things that might bring about a change, at least of direction.
Many of the prominent African-American stars, sports figures, have not come forward to participate fully in the struggle of the inner cities of the African-American society. Wow. Very few black stars have the position to take and make a break from the status quo because of putting their career at risk. What made you decide that you were more interested in the concerns of your people in the society and was willing to put your career at risk?
I wasn't the first one. I mean, we have many, many African Americans, black men and women in history that put their life at risk, not their careers. So a career doesn't compare to a life. You know, we deal with the king, a king like Shaka Zulu. You deal with the armistice Senku. You deal with Desalegn Christophe, Toussaint de Louverture in Haiti. You deal with Paul Robeson, Nat Turner, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, Mr. Louis Farrakhan, Medgar Evers, Charles Evers. The list is, you know, endless. If you want to get into the athletic field, the great Muhammad Ali gave up his career, gave up his money, refused to fight the Vietnamese, remained a black man, became a Muslim, announced it, defied the racist attitude. Jackie Robinson basically gave up his life, broke a color line, stood up as a man. I'm only one of those. What has happened is that we have covered over those things, and we've made role models and heroes out of little boys. You know, you have the Jordans and the Magics and the Arsenio's and all of these young men who have the $3 and $4 million contracts, and they're being put on altars for physical, and I underline physical ability. It's a shame. And when you go out in South Central Los Angeles, the masses of our young men can only look forward to the armed service or jails. So is there any kind of doubt about any kind of conscious black man that's my age that would not want to make a contribution to the enlightenment of my people against all odds?
I know that you are directly involved with the gang situation in Los Angeles, the Crips and the Bloods. What are the programs? What is it that you're trying to achieve working with these young brothers and sisters?
Let me tell you something. You see, in Los Angeles, we have two of the most notorious gangs ever existed in any city, the Bloods and the Crips, Crips and Bloods. These young men are the hardest young men right now working with me to bring about change. About 5 nights a week in the same living room, you'll find from 40 to 50 Crips and Bloods, 8 or 9 different sets, Brims, Blackstone Bloods. Oh boy, Grape Street, Rolling 60s. They're all here with their leadership to bring about a change. So at some point, with the awesome brilliance that's out there, and the fact that they are warriors who risk their life, die, and kill, who don't want to do that anymore, but yet have that in them, I think most of our celebrities and athletes are going to have to be either black or white, or something. They're going to have to contribute or be on the other side. And I don't mean that all white people are against us. I mean we have to emphasize black and community, a nation within a nation. We can no longer apologize and back up and ask for acceptance by white people. We are black. Well, I got involved because Minister Farrakhan came in and spoke at the sports arena, and his speech was "Stop the Killing." And the night after that, he met up here in my home with gangs. And I got to know a lot of them, and I continued that work. And I escalated that work. And I operate under a program called the American program. Last 4 letters in American is I Can. I Can is our particular motto. We believe in the responsibility of self-determination. You have a responsibility if we're going to be free. These young brothers have taken to that. They come up and they take the classes. We have feeling sessions. We have strategy sessions. We have sessions on raising funds. And what we're doing is teaching life management skills, which has no color, no gender. It is for everyone. But when you deal with life management skills, your self-esteem comes up, and you have the ability to manage your everyday life, regardless of the circumstances. I'll give you an example. You eliminate the negative, establish the facts, and pick the best option. That's all you can do. Once you learn how to do that, you address problems much better. You live your life much better. So these men are the executives within my organization, and I'm very proud of them because to have 40 or 50 very volatile, young black men who are capable of anything, well-behaved, interested in their young brothers. They're going to teach their young brothers, and they're going to clean up their communities, but not in the same sense of we're going to stop this, but we're going to add something and create something. And when you do that, that will automatically stop something. We have been systematically put out of the system. The role models that we talk about, the Magics and all of these guys, are a hindrance to the development of young black men because only a small percentage of young black men will ever play basketball or baseball or football. So what we have to do is empower these men out there, allow them to become a part of the system by changing some of the rules that keep them out of the system. So within my organization, 80% of our funds go to the grassroots leadership. 90% of my time is involved with them, 10% with the establishment. Right now, we have a strong enough coalition to challenge anybody in the country on human development, because every individual that's in my organization is an example and a statistic of what the American program can do.
You are still looked upon greatly as a celebrity in our community. The media portrayal of the African American and its impact on our attitudes and behavior of black men specifically have been a negative impact on our growth as black men in the community.
Well, that's a twofold question. Me being a celebrity is almost irrelevant, but the other part of the question is very, very important. Of course, if you deal genetically, we are the possessor of the dominant gene, which means two blacks can make a white, two whites can't make a black. So when the Nazi Party or the John Birches say don't deal with racial mixing, they're talking about being eliminated. If you have a force on earth that can eliminate your race, absorb you, as Shaka did with the tribes that he captured, you're going to have a great fear of that particular power. So naturally, you're going to try to keep it down. You divide it by taking language away. You divide it by religion. You divide it by education. You divide it by male and female. Right now, the society says that the black female is to be admired. The young black male is nothing. He's the most endangered species on earth. He's incarcerated, probation. He's killed violently more than anyone else percentage-wise. But yet, and he's not supposed to be a good father, but yet these young men bring their babies here. And I would say that at least 50% of them take care of their babies, and I've seen their babies. And you don't hear about this. And in fact, the media don't even want to present this because they want to present this image to keep this tremendous force down, this negative energy to keep this tremendous force down, because if this force ever does the right things, it's going to be the greatest challenge to his authority and his control.
Myself, coming from a so-called third world country, who look towards the United States, and being a black man, we look at the African Americans as a role model, quote. Many of the islands in the Caribbean, the youths are adapting to the Crips and the Bloods, but the negatives of those trends, what would you say as one who is directly involved with this program to those young folks in the Caribbean about getting involved with the negatives of Crips and Bloods?
See, this is a mistake that we make. It's you old folks that set the wrong example. You know why those young folks deal with Crips and Bloods? Because the standard of manhood that's presented to them is so subpar. We don't have the examples of manhood that these people can look. We haven't challenged this system. We haven't made this system change in the manner that it should. We have been cowards hiding behind crumbs and gifts. We're totally controlled black fathers that have to mince our words when we talk to our young people. And so the young people would rather be what they call men with their own loyalties and kill and risk getting killed because it feels better than kissing butt or listening to those who are trying to make a living by being a tom, singing, dancing, and whatever else to a white-controlled society. So I wouldn't tell them anything. What I would do is let them see an example of the manhood that these Crips and Bloods are perpetuating. And when this gets around, they will understand that they can have a Crip and Blood mentality, but if they turn that around into a positive kind of force without giving up their manhood, like all of their elders are telling them to do, then they'll get the picture. It'll be simple. It's not even complicated. Our leadership is too old and too dependent and want to be approved of. There's nobody in the city that can come to a rally and debate us on human development, and there's no one in the city that can really deal with these communities like these brothers that I deal with. But yet they get all the money and they get all the power. But you got old, antiquated people representing the people. You don't have any young leaders that's on any boards or that's being recognized that can make any money. And don't even talk about your PhDs and all of those. They can't talk to nobody. They were taught by the same people that oppressed them. They were not taught to deal with black people. They were taught to deal with white people. There is a difference. The condition is tremendously different. A woman, a black woman and a black man position is different. But they put all minorities in the same bag and say we suffer from the same thing. Yet why is the black man at the bottom of the totem pole? Because he's the strength. You kill the strength, you control the people.
Why is it that many of the so-called mainstream black organizations are not capable of dealing with the circumstances that affects our young black male and female today?
What we have to deal with is that they can be all right. NAACP has a purpose. SCLC has a purpose. All of those organizations, they do something that is valuable. But they cannot be the leadership because they have misrepresented the things that are going to bring us our freedom. You see, in order to be free, you must take great risk. You cannot mince your words when you talk about racism. You can't please the oppressor by telling a half-truth. You have to take risk to bring about change. So if we take the risk, if I align myself with the most notorious young men in the city and we take the risk and we control those neighborhoods and develop those young kids, and we can still deal with the establishment and still work with the Brotherhood Crusade and Danny Bakewell and NAACP and all those organizations, but let them know that they're not at the forefront anymore, because you cannot be in this political system as such and be able to take the kind of risk that's necessary, because your dollars will be cut like that and you can't work when you are confined by those parameters. You must be much freer, and you must be in a situation where you have everything to lose, but you have everything to gain, because if you win, you bring about the necessary change.
You mentioned Minister Farrakhan. Minister Farrakhan visited the country of Belize, where he received one of the warmest welcome on his world tour. He spoke of economic empowerment for the African Americans. Do you see this as a vital area and necessity, and an area that should be explored more for our liberation?
I mean, in 1967, my organization at the time was the Black Economic Union. We got over $1 million from the Ford Foundation to deal with black businesses using two principles, expertise and capital. Those are the two principles. We don't use our expertise and we have no capital source. Minister Farrakhan is a great leader out of the Nation of Islam, yet the nation have never dealt with economics on a sophisticated level. The minister have been a messenger, a motivator, a cleaner up of downtrodden people that no one else could clean up, a person that brought discipline and honor and dignity. But to be honest, when you deal with the area of economics, they have not been sophisticated in the area of economics, because they have been pretty much a closed organization. The minister now is opening up, because if you are a true leader, you're a leader of all the people, because the principles of right and wrong apply to all people, and character and loyalty and those things apply to all people. So I've always admired his work, but yet the technical understanding of economics have to come out of the American program, because you must combine the ability to work with anyone, the ability to bring the self-esteem up, the ability to recognize a natural resource. You can't be of religion, gender, race, etc., etc., although there might be an emphasis on race because of the oppressor. We deal with 80% of our money going to those who would never have a chance to make that kind of money. We deal with the creation of labor forces that will take advantage of all of these prisons that's being built around the country. We negotiate for contracts with the state on prison that's going to be built as a profit-making organization. The American organization program is not a non-profit charitable organization. It is a profit-making organization. We will deal with economics on every level. That's a major part of our program.
On the untimely assassination of Malcolm X, he was trying to develop universal linkage with the African-American struggle and the indigenous struggle here with Africans throughout the world. You visited Grenada with a group of businessmen, investors in a predominantly African country. Could you describe what that venture was all about and its impact?
That's pretty good information. You're about the only person who's ever realized that. I went there as a part of OPEC, Overseas Private Investment Corporation, which is a profit-making hand of the government. At that time, I was an officer in a company called the High-Tech Engineering Company out of McLean, Virginia. It was not OPEC was not African-American. I was an African-American dealing with other corporate heads, the chairman of the board, McGregor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the American policy is when they deal with a country, evade a country, if they then re-embrace a country, they try to create joint ventures between the American businessman and the African-American businessman, or the Caribbean businessman, which, of course, is something that I'll always deal with, because these are the principles that will bring about the kind of economic power that we need, and that's the kind of sophistication that we have. And I probably can say to you that there are probably few black Americans that are even aware of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. And that leads me to say that there's so many areas that we can create joint ventures or we can raise capital to bring about an economic growth that we never approach. In fact, the American program is the only black company that has a contract with the Department of Education in the state of California in corrections, and that's a shame. Even the 8A set-aside companies that could be utilizing certain government contracts, we don't have very many of them that's doing that, because our leadership has always led us away from the economic empowerment of ourselves. So I call for that leadership to really just concentrate on your little particular areas and let some of these young men who are starting to understand what economics are about and what culture is about, and give them an opportunity along with the American program to spearhead this movement.
On culture and its significance in our community, why do you believe that we should work much harder to preserve the African culture in our society?
Well, see, the fact that our culture was taken away from us is what put us in this condition today. A people without a culture is a people without nothing. You cannot become Jewish. You're African, and that is your history. That's your soul, that's your blood, that's your future, that's your babies, that's your family. And then you become a part of the greater family of mankind under the eyes of God. But under the eyes of God, we're all a part of the greater family, but within that greater family, we're broken into cultural groups that have a history, and a positive history that must be perpetuated. And with the positive binding of culture is what allows us to do positive things. The lack of it allows us to have no self-esteem, no togetherness. And our system has perpetuated the policy of separation, or the policy of trying to assimilate into being a European individual. It'll never work.
In closing here, what advice you have to the young African-American male and female, to us who are coming up facing some of the difficult situation to know ourselves and stand up like a man and a woman?
The first thing you got to do is educate yourself with information. You see, the educational system that you come up under is a European educational system. How dare you take history and tell me that's history? You took white history. So you must educate yourself to the truth. And once you educate yourself, you must take a risk, because nothing is going to come easy. You can't have it both ways. If you want to be comfortable and live on this hill, then you have got to take a risk of losing that. So your freedom is based upon knowing thyself through educating yourself properly, then taking risks to bring about change. It's not complicated.
Brother Jim Brown, we thank you very much for your time on being on our show today and sharing the words of wisdom on the Belize Caribbean Pulse.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, brother.
Okay.
And I am your host, Nuri Akbar. For the staff of this program, we thank you.
Born on the island of Trinidad in the Caribbean and brought to the United States at the age of 11 years old by his parents, Dr. Kwame Toure, formerly Stokely Carmichael, became a prominent organizer for African liberation in America and the world. At Howard University, the then Stokely Carmichael became the leader of the student organization's Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, better known as SNCC, who rallied and organized students in the civil rights movement in the 60s. Stokely Carmichael collaborated with Dr. Martin Luther King and organized against desegregation and voters' registration in the Deep South. He counseled with Malcolm X and was named honorary Prime Minister of the Oakland-based Black Panther Party. Today, Dr. Kwame Toure organizes for the All-African People's Revolutionary Party.
Africa produced monotheism, belief in one God, gave it to the world. Africa gave Judaism to the world. Africa stabilized Christianity for the world. Africa sustained Islam for the world. If you look at Africa's contributions to world religions, it's overwhelming. It's outstanding. The leader, the founder of the Ba'ath Party, Mr. Miguel Aplas, shows us that Europe has never produced any universal religion. We know there's no such thing as a superior culture or an inferior culture, all depending upon the natural surrounding in which the people find themselves and the people's understanding of how to work with these forces to advance civilization. So there's no such thing as an inferior or a superior culture, but people must know their culture, because it is their culture that binds them together. It's their culture that gives them their cohesive force. It is their culture that is their weapon to struggle against encroachment by others.
Welcome to the Belize Caribbean Pulse. We seek to examine the social, cultural, economic, and political challenges which faces the indigenous people of the Caribbean and Central American region as we approach the 21st century. We are presently located at Cal State in Long Beach in California to hear a very special guest, Dr. Kwame Toure. Brother Kwame Toure, you have visited Belize once. You were a host of SPARE, the Society for the Promotion of Education and Research. Welcome to our program.
Oh, thank you. We will never forget that trip. They were our perfect host.
You visited Belize, of course, and you see the situation there that we are facing in a developing country wedged in Central America. What was your analysis? How did you feel when you saw the conditions prevailing in the country of Belize?
Well, the circumstances of Belize is the same for Africans worldwide, and even having more of a character of those Africans in the Caribbean, exploited, disorganized, no clear direction, unorganized fight to persist against cultural penetration, which is certainly a big problem in Belize. So we suffer in Belize from the same problem we suffer all over, and the solution is the political education of the masses of our people and clear political organizations, such as the work that SPEAR is doing, a spreading of this work, intensifying of this work.
And looking at the entire region, Jamaica, Trinidad, we have had a revolt there in Trinidad not too long ago, and of course we have had the re-election of Michael Manley in Jamaica. Do you see these events as a sign of what's to come as we approach the 21st century in the Caribbean region?
And the Caribbean region is becoming more ripe for revolution. These attempts, which may pretend to be premature, as in the case of Trinidad, are only really showing the intense desire of the people for revolutionary change in the Caribbean. The disappointment with those who should bring about this revolutionary change only comes to add to this, to show that the people are expecting this and want this, a revolutionary change. Bishop was only an indicator of it. And the problems that are faced in the Caribbean today cannot be solved by the neo-colonialist governments there, because they just want to be there to make money, and it's becoming too difficult to be head of a neo-colonialist government with all the problems and the people rising up. So these events just point to the coming revolution in the Caribbean.
Michael Manley calls for a Caribbean union in terms of a banking system. Do you think that this is something that is relevant for region to pull together their resources and strive to move away from the dominant World Bank monetary fund domination of small third world economies?
There's no question that they must have this, but it will only be successful if there's political unification underlining it, which obviously means then preceding it. Thus a Caribbean-wide union, is what is necessary politically, and it's not difficult. We could do it overnight and make Fidel Castro the president. At least he's incorruptible, and we would need somebody who's incorruptible in that position.
The term, the New World Order, that is being used very often today, what is your interpretation of the New World Order?
Well, the New World Order is nothing but SOS, the same old, same old. It's just imperialism, since the anti-colonial struggle has been forced to grant concessions, even neo-colonialism, if you will, and finding itself now in its final crisis, is trying to revert to this, to come back to the old order, calling it the new order. But once the people's consciousness has been risen and if they've learned something, they can't be pushed back. Consequently, all this new order is going to lead to is the final conflict between imperialism and the struggling masses around the world.
You are one of the organizers of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Could you give us a background of the emergence of this organization?
Our only program is to build our party, and this is done through creating a climate of political education, showing the necessity of it, working with other groups such as SPEAR, which are involved in the process of politicizing the people, exchanging ideas, seeing the need for common work together, and then slowly bringing together all of these forces.
As we speak tonight, there is an imperialist war that is unfolding in the Persian Gulf. Of course, the South African issue still remains alive and well. Give us a perspective of what you see is going to be the outcome of these struggles.
Well, you know, where American imperialism is concerned, if I'm the Imam of Mecca and American imperialism is fighting the devil, as Africa is my mother, I'm Satan comrades in arms. I'm just against American imperialism. And whoever they are against, I am for. So, and there's no question, there's no need for us to discuss this. America's giving lessons on morality is like a thief speaking of honesty. When America is totally immoral, she came into being by wiping out over 300 indigenous nations. If indeed America is concerned about land annexation and land aggression, she should send her troops to Johannesburg, to Azania, South Africa, where their land has been annexed, aggressed, and we're still being shot down by racist settlers. So there's no question to discuss America. America goes to war for money, nothing else, for greed. It's a capitalist country.
But what do you see the aftermath of what is happening now?
No, what the aftermath is, America comes out the loser because the hatred for America and Zionism, American imperial Zionism, has reached irreversible heights, and heights that tensions now that will have to activate themselves constantly. That is, that area now is going to be constantly at war, an intensified war, not even like what has been since the intrusion of Zionism, the Zionist state of Israel. This war is going to intensify both in intensity and in frequency.
You marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. You worked with Malcolm X. Could you give us a kind of summarization of some of the highlights of the student movements that you were involved with coming up as a student, and why is it important today?
Oh, the highlights of it? We could say that one of the things that we understood is the need for students to put the knowledge they've acquired at the feet of the exploiting masses. Once this is done, certainly you can have clear advances of the society. And this was done particularly in this country, the United States of America, with the African students went to join hands with the peasants, the sharecroppers in the South. As a matter of fact, it was from this union that you got black power. That is to say, when students do not use their skills to advance themselves, but use the skills to advance the people, this certainly is a high point, and this certainly was one of the high points of the struggle. Another high point would be the joining of the struggle to the international situation. You know, America tries to make believe that it is the world, and that nothing is important outside of America unless it's at war with them or something like that. And this character of American imperialism affects the Africans in America, and much struggle had to be waged to break through it so that Africans could begin to look outside of America to make alliances with forces which were fighting against American imperialism, and the joining of forces against American imperialism over the question of the Vietnam War and the anti-Vietnam movement in this country, I think, was also another highlight. Here, the African population came to give the slogan, "Hell no, we won't go." And this slogan, "Hell no, we won't go," is the slogan that was used to channel energy towards destroying the American draft, which has now been destroyed, leaving America with an unemployed army, which is much weaker.
What would